Hi there, and welcome to the Indie Pop Girl, the podcast where you'll find music chat, new releases, hidden gems, and nostalgic deep dives. I am back with another episode, and this week is another instalment of the Pop Girl series. And for this episode, I'll be talking about my personal AOTY for 2023, Desire I Want to Turn Into You by the amazing Caroline Polachek. Desire I Want to Turn Into You is the fourth studio album by singer-songwriter and producer Caroline Polachek and was released on the 14th of February 2023 through Caroline's imprint Perpetual Novice label. It was the follow-up to her breakthrough, Pang, which was released in 2019 and featured the viral TikTok hit, So Hot You're Hurting My Feelings. Caroline was involved in the majority of the production for Desire, and she shared production credits with Danny L. Hall. The record also features additional production from Dan Nigro, Sega Bodega, Ariel Rekscheid, and one of the podcast regulars, Jim E. Stack. The Ever Asking Edition Deluxe was released digitally exactly a year later in 2024 and was supported by the single Dang and a reworking of Butterfly Net featuring Wiseblood. The vinyl deluxe will be eventually released next month after some delays, and the vinyl will be included in a hardback book with some stunning photography. I think it's something that I will treat myself to at some point. Caroline is one of those artists that just consistently delivers high quality with her physical releases. At its heart, Desire is a pop record, but Caroline is one of those artists that experiments with so many genres and incorporates different sounds and variety into her music. It's difficult to actually describe Desire to people who are unfamiliar with her work. Each track is completely different from each other, but somehow Caroline manages to deliver a cohesive full body of work. I would say that Caroline leans more into the alternative pop world, and I don't like making comparisons as I feel Caroline stands completely on her own. But if you are unfamiliar, I would say that Caroline reminds me of Kate Bush. I say this because, like Kate, Caroline gets involved with every aspect of her artistry, from the songwriting, the production and engineering, the artwork, photography and videos. Both share a meticulous approach in the studio, and like Kate, both women don't belong to one particular genre. Kate paved the way in the late 70s and into the 80s and beyond, and she was a pioneer in a man's world and continues to inspire so many artists. Caroline is also bringing that same vision, and she is a breath of fresh air in today's contemporary pop music world. But before I start to dive into the tracks, I always like to give some context in how I discovered the artist and why I have included this record as part of my series. Before the pandemic, I had never heard of Caroline Polachek before, as Pang was released towards the back end of 2019, and I was seeing a lot of people online talking about that record, and many reactors on YouTube that I followed were reacting to Pang. And I went away to read about Caroline, and I thought it would be a record that I would enjoy. Like so many people, I was discovering so much music during the pandemic, and it was incredible being introduced to so many new artists. I watched so many reactions of Pang, and I listened to it in my own time. It was a record that was a slow burner for me. It didn't fully click right away, but I stayed patient. I kept coming back to it and I really enjoyed the production, and I just fell in love with Caroline's incredible vocal style. Eventually, Pang just clicked into place, and it's a record that requires repeated listens. It's got so much depth, and for a pop record, I was blown away at how much Caroline packed into it. I became obsessed with her vocals, and years later, Ocean of Tears is one of my favourite songs of all time. I ended up purchasing the Pang vinyl, and it's one of my favourite pressings in my entire collection. I was lucky enough to pick up the marble grey variant, and it's absolutely stunning. I remember being sick at home with COVID and watching Caroline at Glastonbury, and she was a total joy to watch. I loved her even more after that performance, and many of the Pang songs were elevated even further, but I was just blown away by her stage presence and vocals. When Desire was announced and I saw the artwork, I just knew that Caroline was about to deliver one special record. You know when you have that feeling, and I didn't even think about if I should make the pre-order purchase or not. The only downside to the Desire era was the vinyl delays. I was playing the record to death on Spotify, and it was months before the vinyl was eventually shipped, but the wait was completely worth it. Desire is one of those special pop albums which will be hailed a classic in years to come. Caroline delivered a no-skip, flawless pop masterpiece, beautifully produced and features some of her career best vocals. I have included this in the Pop Girls series as Desire feels like the natural continuation to last week's episode covering No Angel by Dido. Dido is featured on Desire, and I will discuss this later in the episode, but I had to include Caroline in the series. She is completely unique, and like Dido and Kate Bush, Caroline is making a mark in the pop world, delivering pop music with so much substance and style, and this record deserves all the love and praise. It was my personal AOTY in 2023, and if you are unfamiliar, I hope at the end of this episode that you will discover Caroline and her work. The strength of this record has cemented Caroline as one of my all-time favourite artists. And when I started this podcast, I couldn't wait to talk about this record. So let's discuss the tracks now. As I've mentioned in previous episodes, I will not be playing clips of the songs, so if you are curious, then please support the artists I cover by streaming, downloading or buying physical copies. Thank you. Track 1, Welcome to My Island. What an intro. Holy shit, guys. Caroline's vocals are off the scale here, and what a way to open up the record. This is a perfect pop song in my eyes. The instrumental is full of 80s energy, but she gives it her own modern twist, so it never feels dated or like it's recycling what's been done before. Right from the opening scream, you're pulled into her world, and the track sets the tone for the whole album. Playful, bold, theatrical, and completely in her control. The production is so layered, moving from soaring vocals to shimmering synths to that incredible guitar solo. It's not just flashy, it actually heightens the drama of the song and makes the whole thing feel larger than life. The bridge takes things in a more personal direction, with Caroline opening up about her complicated relationship with her father, who sadly passed away during the pandemic. It's such a striking contrast to the fiery confidence of the opening verses, almost like the mask slips for a moment. Caroline's father battled depression and bipolar disorder, and they had a complicated relationship. Caroline's father never approved of her artistry and never saw her play live. This fiery bridge and Caroline's frantic vocal performance with that raw honesty cuts through the glossy production. It's a reminder that even in a song this bold and euphoric, she isn't afraid to show vulnerability. That push and pull between strength and fragility is what makes the track so powerful. Seeing her perform it live on Jimmy Kimmel in 2023 was unforgettable. The way she commanded the stage, hit every vocal, and even played the guitar herself was a total masterclass in performance. She somehow manages to pack in so many different moods and sounds in just under 4 minutes without it ever feeling overcrowded. It was my most played song on Spotify Wrapped in 2023, which says it all really. To me, it's one of the greatest pop songs ever created. A statement opener that instantly tells you you're about to hear something special. Track 2, Pretty Impossible. A complete change in sonic direction. This one leans into a slight trip-hop beat, giving it a darker, moodier edge compared to the explosive opener. The subtle percussion underpins some gorgeous keys and shimmering synths that gradually layer in during the first verse. It's a masterclass in production. The bass line is warm and hypnotic, while every little detail in the arrangement feels carefully placed to build atmosphere. What really stands out is Caroline's voice. She treats it like another instrument, bending and stretching it in ways that constantly surprise you. Her runs and ad-libs weave in and out of the beat, almost like a dialogue with the production. And you get such a sense of freedom in how she performs here. It's playful, expressive, and technically stunning all at once. The hook is so simple yet so effective. The kind that burrows into your brain and refuses to leave. It runs throughout the track like a mantra, making the whole song feel hypnotic. You could play it on a loop and still want more, which really shows how clever his songwriting is. Lyrically, this is where Caroline shows just how unique she is as a writer. Her words aren't obvious or straightforward. They're full of surreal imagery and unexpected turns of phrase. Lines like, potential is the drug they never knew you never tried, or one eye on the lane and one eye on the lava are the kind you have to sit with and interpret for yourself. I noticed that during her Jimmy Kimmel live performance that I mentioned in the previous track, her guitar strap had the word potential written on it, and she adjusted the strap at the end of the performance for the audience to see. So I think that was a little Easter egg she planted there. That's part of the magic. She doesn't hand you the meaning. She creates a world you can step into and take your own perspective from. It makes the song feel endlessly rich because every time you come back to it, you can hear something new or take away something different. Track 3, Bunny is a Rider. What a song. That killer bass line instantly sets the mood. It's funky and deep, which is impossible not to move to. Then you notice those little baby babbling sounds in the mix, which add this playful, slightly surreal edge. I read that Danny L. Hall sampled his baby daughter's first vocal cameo into the song, and it's such a clever touch and a reminder of how creative Danny and Caroline is with sound design. The beat is tight, the groove is irresistible, and her vocals glide over the top with so much attitude and style. Caroline has been called the human auto-tune, and this track is the perfect example of why. The way she bends her voice and manipulates her melodies is astonishing. She can sound almost artificial, like a processed vocal effect, yet it's completely natural. She uses this ability to maximum effect here, turning her voice into part of the rhythm and texture of the song. The production is so clean and crisp, every element perfectly placed. The mix leaves plenty of space, so even though it's minimal, it never feels empty. Caroline's vocals sit crystal clear, pulling you right into the song, and all the little details she layers in feel like ear candy. It's a track that rewards close listening, but also works instantly as a sleek, confident pop banger. Lyrically, Bunny as a Rider is an enigmatic phrase. Caroline has described Bunny as a sort of elusive, unattainable figure, someone impossible to pin down. That sense of mystery runs through the whole song. It's cool, detached, slippery, and that makes it even more addictive. You can interpret it in different ways, which is exactly what makes it such a standout moment on the record. Track 4, Sunset. Another complete change in direction, and this is actually my husband's favourite track on the record, and I can absolutely see why. From the very first notes of the flamenco inspired guitar, you're transported somewhere sunny and cinematic. The melody is gorgeous, and Caroline's vocals soar with such ease and brightness, carrying that Mediterranean flair all the way through. The production is stunning. Those guitars give it a breezy, organic feel, but then the beat and synth sliding underneath, grounding it in modern pop. The way those two worlds meet, traditional flamenco tones, hand claps, and sleek electronic textures, shows just how adventurous she is as an artist. It never feels like a gimmick, it's seamlessly blended and full of life. The music video, filmed in Barcelona, captures that atmosphere perfectly. You can feel the heat of the sun, the vibrancy of the city, and the sense of freedom that the song radiates. It's summer distilled into a pop song, vibrant, romantic, and so full of energy. It's another moment of pure pop perfection, but in a completely different way to what we've heard before. After the cool detachment of Bunny as a Rider, Sunset bursts in with colour, joy, and a warmth that's impossible not to get swept up in. As Caroline sings in the chorus, no regrets, 'cause you're my sunset, fiery red, forever fearless, and in your arms, a warm horizon. Don't look back, let's ride away. A love song, but with so much warmth and stunning imagery. Sunset takes you to that place, and you never, ever want to leave. Track 5, Crude Drawing of an Angel. We slow things down a bit here, and wow, what a fucking track this is. This floored me upon the first listen. Caroline leans into her most experimental side, both sonically and vocally. The production feels stripped back on the surface, but the more you listen, the more you hear how much is actually happening. Subtle textures and layers float in and out, creating this ghostly, otherworldly atmosphere. The vocal effect she uses in the pre chorus on the camera one, camera two line is just something that I have never heard in a pop record before. It's clear that Caroline is a master in production, sound design, and engineering, and that she just goes for it. Her vocals are the star here. The effects she uses twist her voice into something haunting, but then those high notes hit, drenched in reverb, and it just stops you in your tracks. They feel almost unearthly, and honestly, the first time I heard them, it blew my mind. Her breath control and the way she actually controls her voice is unreal. This track proves that Caroline is a powerhouse vocalist, and every time I hear this, I always find something that I didn't catch before, and that's such clever songwriting. The track starts minimal, but gradually expands and builds, adding weight and intensity halfway through. It's such a satisfying progression. You can feel it breathing and stretching out until it fully takes over. The bass line adds a darker, moody undercurrent, and it definitely gives me Kate Bush vibes, which I absolutely welcome. Lyrically, I interpret this song as another love song, the flip side of Sunset. Sunset is gentle and romantic, and this track is haunting, sensual, almost sexual in its delivery. I love the line in verse 2. I'll not be shy, no, I'll not be gentle with you. It's like Caroline wants to let go of all inhibitions with this person. And to me, this is where the desire theme from the album's title come into play. And to be completely blunt, I think the desire has taken over Caroline and the desire to just fuck. The last chorus she sings, Angel, I'd hold you down, forsake me here on the ground, all or nothing. To me, that is just sex, pure sex. But Caroline balances the intimacy with such class and style. What I love about this song is that it manages to be both intimate and epic at the same time. It feels fragile, like a sketch or a crude drawing, as the title suggests, but it's also sweeping and cinematic in its impact. Caroline's vocals here will always blow me away, and it's a track I'm completely obsessed with. Track 6, I Believe. Dedicated to Sophie, I Believe is one of the most moving moments on the album. Instead of leaning into something sombre or heavy, Caroline chooses to honour Sophie with a track that's bright, uplifting, and full of life. You can hear Sophie's influence throughout, in the sharp metallic synth stabs, the playful textures, and the futuristic sheen of the production. It feels like a celebration of everything Sophie brought to the alternative and hyperpop world, rather than a lament, which makes it even more powerful. Caroline's vocals soar here in a way that feels almost spiritual. There's a real sense of presence in the way she delivers the song, and she took inspiration from Celine Dion, and you could imagine Celine belting this out, but Caroline still puts her own spin on the vocals and makes it completely her own. It's beautiful, heartfelt, and you can really feel that connection. The line in the intro, "Look over the edge, but not too far," could allude to Sophie's passing. Sophie tragically died in 2021 from an accidental fall from a 3-story rooftop in Athens. Charlie XCX also dedicated So I from her Brat record to Sophie, and both of these songs are so touching and a beautiful tribute. Sophie had so much more to give in the hyperpop world, but her spirit lives on. The organ that comes in during the breakdown is such an unexpected twist, but it works perfectly. It adds this almost church-like quality, giving the track a sense of reverence without losing its playfulness. And then, in true Caroline fashion, she pulls another surprise. The little whistle melody from Bunny as a Rider woven into the outro. It's such a clever touch, tying the album together while also making the tribute feel even more personal and creative. What makes I Believe so special is that it's both a song of remembrance and a burst of pure joy. It captures Sophie's legacy in a way that's celebratory and full of love, and it stands as one of the most touching and beautiful tributes I've ever heard on a pop record. Track 7, Fly to You. This one is really special. It brings in additional vocals from Grimes and Dido, and the result is just gorgeous. The production is dreamy and layered, with a mix of drum and bass rhythms, early 2000s style acoustic guitar, and even the faint sound of wedding bells tucked into the background. It's a beautiful blend of textures that feels both nostalgic and futuristic at the same time. What makes it work so well is how each artist gets their own moment to shine. Grimes takes the first verse with her distinctive, ethereal delivery. Then Dido comes in on the second verse, and you instantly realise how much she's been missed. Her voice is so warm and familiar, and it's clear that Caroline has taken inspiration from her over the years. The way Caroline supports both artists in the chorus pulls everything together, so it feels less like a standard feature and more like a true collaboration. The three voices complement each other perfectly. Grimes brings her otherworldly energy. Dido grounds the song with her calm clarity. And Caroline acts as the glue, weaving her harmonies throughout. And when Dido's vocals close out the track, it's such a satisfying and emotional moment. This is exactly how you should do a feature. Balanced, respectful, and allowing each voice to add something unique. Track 8, Blood and Butter. Another big shift sonically, Blood and Butter blends acoustic guitar with sleek electronic production. And there's something so satisfying about how those two worlds collide. The strum guitar gives the song so much warmth, and while the synths and the electronics keep it modern and expansive. It's such a clever balance, organic and electronic side by side, never competing, always complementing each other. The chorus is instantly catchy, the kind of hook that sticks after just one listen. Caroline has this gift for sprinkling little moments of magic into her songs that keep you hooked. And here it's the way her melodies rise and fall with ease, drawing you deeper in. Then comes one of the most surprising moments on the album, the bagpipes. Totally unexpected, but absolutely genius. Instead of feeling out of place, They burst in with this dramatic flair that elevates the song into something cinematic and larger than life. It's one of those twists only Caroline could pull off. The outro is equally brilliant, with the synth stretching the song out into a dreamy haze. It feels like you're being carried away, the track dissolving into light and texture. It's inventive, playful, and proof of how fearless she is with her production choices. Track 9, Hope Drunk Ever Asking. Hope Drunk Ever Asking is just stunning. From the very first listen, it completely blew me away. Compared to some of the more experimental or full-bodied tracks on the record, this track feels stripped back, but that's exactly what makes it so powerful. With fewer distractions, Caroline's vocals take centre stage, and she absolutely soars. Every note feels deliberate, emotional, and commanding. The way the track builds is incredible. It starts fragile and intimate, and then those background vocals start to swell in behind her, almost like a choir. It's one of those pure holy shit moments where the whole song suddenly expands into something massive and overwhelming. Caroline has such a gift for using her voice, not just to carry a melody, but to create an entire atmosphere. The production here is immaculate, clean, balanced, and perfectly mixed, so that nothing ever feels heavy-handed. Even the little smoke alarm-like sound in the background, which might throw some listeners off at first, actually adds to the atmosphere. It gives the song an edge, something slightly unsettling that keeps it from being too polished or safe. What I love most is how this track manages to feel both intimate and epic in the same breath. It's Caroline at her most vulnerable, but also her most transcendent, and it's a perfect showcase of why her artistry is so unique. Track 10, Butterfly Net. With a record like this, it's almost impossible to pick a favourite, but Butterfly Net holds a really special place in my heart. It's one of those songs that feels timeless from the very first listen. Caroline's vocals are absolutely perfect here. Tender, precise, and full of warmth. The bass and acoustic guitar set a soft, grounding foundation. And then that proggy organ comes in. Such an unexpected choice, but it completely works. To hear something like that in a pop record feels bold and refreshing, and I love that she's unafraid to take those risks. There's something about this track that also reminds me of winter. Caroline even sings about November in the lyrics, and you can really feel that seasonal chill in the atmosphere of the song. But what makes Caroline so fascinating as an artist is how she always seems to follow her instincts. She doesn't play it safe. She trusts her gut, and that freedom is what makes her music so exciting. Butterfly Net is a perfect example of that. The instrumental break after the bridge, with its dreamy, almost dream pop inspired textures with the children's choir, is just breathtaking. It drifts into a dream pop haze that I will always be obsessed with. It's one of those passages you want to live inside forever. The production is off the scale, detailed and immersive, without ever overwhelming the song's gentle beauty. And then she took it even further with the remix featuring Wise Blood, which elevates the track into something even more cosmic and expansive. It shows how versatile the song is and how strong the core writing is, that it can bloom into different shapes like that. Track 11, Smoke. Smoke might be the most straightforward pop song on the record, but don't let that simplicity fool you. Caroline still manages to pack so much into the production. It's sleek, punchy, and instantly memorable. But if you listen closely, there are layers of detail tucked into every corner. One of my favourite touches is how she weaves in the melody from Pretty Impossible. I love when artists create those little callbacks because it makes the whole album feel connected, almost like it's telling one big story. The floating over the volcano line could call back to the Welcome to My Island music video. Volcanoes are a recurring motif for the visuals for Desire, as Caroline was using various metaphors for the subconscious and what people went through during the pandemic era. Vocally, she's just unbelievable here. Caroline knows exactly when to pull back and to sing softly, letting the emotion breathe, and then when to completely soar. That dynamic control is what makes her voice so captivating. It's not just about hitting the notes, it's about the character and personality she brings to them. Her range is staggering, but it never feels showy. It always serves the song. What's great about Smoke is that it shows how Caroline can deliver a pure pop track without losing any of her artistry. It's catchy and accessible, but it's still got her fingerprints all over it. The attention to detail, the vocal experimentation, the subtle callbacks. It's a reminder that even when she goes straight forward, she's still operating on a completely different level. Track 12, Billions. What a closer. Honestly, guys, I've lost count of how many times I've played this track. This is exactly how you end a record. It's not just good, it's one of the greatest album closers of all time in my opinion. It ties together everything Caroline has been building towards: creativity, experimentation, boldness, and a complete refusal to play it safe. Lyrically, Billions is fascinating. I've seen so many theories about what it all means, but that's part of Caroline's magic. Her words can feel abstract and open-ended, and it's up to you to interpret them for yourself on Desire in so many places. Sometimes the images don't give you a straight answer, and that ambiguity is what makes her work so endlessly rewarding. You can get lost in the lyricism just as much as in the production. But a few things stood out to me listening to this song, and it's funny that Caroline sings in verse 1, sexting sonnets under the tables. Now, usually with sexting, it can be pretty casual, and you really can't compare that to a sonnet, which is poetry basically. Can you imagine sexting a sonnet with 14 lines? But here Caroline is making it happen. And she continues with the intimacy theme here. Caroline follows that line with salty flavour, lies like a sailor, but he loves like a painter, oh billions. I would say this is quite obvious what Caroline is talking about here. Her description of semen in this sensual manner doesn't come across as crass or shocking for the sake of it. Caroline definitely has a way with words, but her lyrical structure is so clever, and she tends not to follow the usual pop song conventional structure, but still writes them as pop songs. It's genius when you actually think about it. And speaking of production, it's addictive. The groove is hypnotic, the atmosphere is lush, and the instrumental pulls you deeper and deeper until you're completely submerged in it. Just when you think the track can't possibly surprise you anymore, she throws in a children's choir. It's such a bold, unexpected move, and it transforms the song into something almost spiritual. Then the beat kicks back in for the outro, and honestly, it's fucking mind-blowing. It's the kind of moment that leaves you speechless, no matter how many times you hear it. Billions is everything pop music should be. Creative, risk-taking, emotional, and larger than life. To me, it's one of the greatest pop songs ever created. A perfect finale to an album that never stops pushing boundaries. The critical reaction to Desire I Want to Turn Into You was nothing short of phenomenal. It landed universal acclaim across the board, even earning a Metacritic score of 94, and it showed up on so many Best of 2023 lists. Critics praise Caroline for making an album that is both fearless and deeply accessible, full of risk-taking production choices, surreal lyrics, and vocals that prove why she's in a league of her own. Tracks like Bunny as a Rider, Welcome to My Island, Billions, and Butterfly Net have already cemented themselves as fan favourites, the kind of songs people will keep coming back to for years. The record did pick up a Grammy nomination for Best Engineered Album, Non-Classical, which was well deserved, but honestly, it felt like Caroline was robbed of the major categories. This is an album that redefined what pop music can be, and it deserved recognition on that scale. In terms of legacy, this feels like the defining statement of her career so far. It elevated her from being seen as a cult favourite into someone who can set the agenda for what ambitious, boundary-pushing pop sounds like in the 2020s. The fact that people are still dissecting the lyrics, still discovering new textures in the production, and still obsessing over the live performances just proves how much staying power it has. Desire I Want to Turn Into You isn't just a highlight of 2023. It was my personal AOTY of that year, and it's already been talked about as one of the great pop records of the decade, and I can't wait to see what Caroline does next. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode. Please follow me on Instagram, Facebook and Threads at The Indie Pop Girl. If you've enjoyed this episode, I'd love it if you could follow and share, as it helps other music lovers to find the show. I am also on YouTube. You can find me at The Indie Pop Girl Podcast, and I'd be grateful if you could like and subscribe, as I'm creating content, shorts and posting teasers for upcoming episodes. I've recently made the brave move to join TikTok, and I'm working hard to create some good content for you. You can find me on TikTok at The Indie Pop Girl Podcast if you want to give me a follow. There is a public Spotify playlist available, and I've added some of my favourite tracks from the artists and records covered on the podcast. This will be updated as the episodes drop, so if you are curious with any of the artists and albums that I have covered, please give it a listen, and who knows, you might find a new discovery. You can find me on Spotify at The Indie Pop Girl, and the playlist is called Favourite Tracks from Podcast Episodes. I will be back very soon with the next instalment in the Pop Girl series. I'll be discussing a sophomore record from 2023 from a pop superstar who completely smashed her headline performance at Glastonbury this year. I hope you can join me. Until then, I'm Rachel, the Indie Pop Girl. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.